All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. So, my name is Ian Seamans, and I am the Dallas City Hall advocate for Environment Texas. We are here because we are working on protecting renewable energy here in Texas, which is critical to our energy future and also our climate future. And I'm really excited that all of you are here and so interested in getting involved and being advocates for that and learning how we can take action together. So just first off, what we're doing today, we're going to have this quick introduction, and then we have our special guest speaker of Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins with us to say a few words to lead us off today. Next up, we are going to be talking about the issue of what's at stake here. So what's the problem, why renewables matter, the legislation that is currently on the Senate floor that we're fighting against, and how we're going to be organizing to stop it. And then we're going to break up into a few breakout groups here on this side of the room, back there in the corner, and here in the middle, to talk about some concrete ways that we can go about organizing and advocating for renewable energy here in Texas. And then we are going to wrap up, discuss those next steps of what we're going to be doing over the next month or so. And we also have a quick social at the end, so anybody who's interested in sticking around, it's about a block and a half that way, Pegasus City Brewery. So if you want to walk over there, or they have a parking lot that has validation, so free parking here in downtown Dallas, then you can do that. All right, and I will give it to Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins for a few words.
Thank you all so much. Great to be here. So thanks so much for having me. Y'all are the last event of my now 15-hour day that is going on today. Yeah.
Best for last.
A long one, yeah, but it is good to be with you, and thank you for the work that you do for renewable energies and for our environment. So last year, Texas led the nation in population growth, and that's expected to continue. One of my jobs as the head of emergency management for Dallas County is to constantly be looking at, can y'all hear me okay? Constantly looking at that grid. And renewable energy plays a very important part in not having a repeat of having our lights go out in extreme weather. So it's very important from a life safety, immediate life safety purpose, as well as from leaving the world a little better than we found it for our children, and dealing with the largest cause of absenteeism in our DIC school, which, guys, as some of you know, is childhood asthma. So good news, we, Texas, have been blessed by God and nature with the very best resources for solar and wind in the entire country. If we can just keep from having them legislated out of existence, then we will have a tremendous renewable energy source there. So renewable energy is not only environmentally friendly, but it adds additional support to the grid, and it reduces electric bills and helps reduce our reliance on imported fuels. Now, as we enter into a challenging legislative session, I want to talk to you about 3 things you can do that I hope everyone in this room will do. First thing, you got to stay informed, right? To win the fight, we have to know what the fight is. You can do that by signing up for notifications from Environment Texas or following the news. I recommend everybody here, if you hadn't already done it, sign up for notifications with Environment Texas. You can't help if you don't know what's going on. Next is call, visit, or email your elected representative. And I'd add to that, not just the representative, but the people who work for the representative. Okay, and I was just on the phone with the Texas Tribune doing an interview a couple hours ago, and one of the things I told them, they were kind of looking for a partisan story about something, is I reminded them that every elected official, almost, or everyone I've ever met anyway, got into politics for the same reason, right? They saw some problem, or they saw some challenge. It probably isn't renewable energy. They got them into it, right? But they saw some problem or some opportunity challenge that they either felt they were uniquely qualified to help with or highly qualified to help with, right? And that was something for their community. And so whether they're a Republican or a Democrat, approach them with the idea that they're there to do what in their mind is good, right? And give them facts, give them an elevator speech, because some of them don't have much of an attention span to begin with, but during a legislative session, that really gets compacted. Tell them why it matters to you. People have a hard time with statistics, but they do remember why it matters to people. I was in a group yesterday of downtown residents and downtown business owners, and we were doing some things to help them with an issue. And somebody said, you know, what made you want to do this thing to help us with this issue that this other group wouldn't help us with? And I said, it was the stress that I heard in your voices at the last meeting you invited me to, realizing that somebody had to help you with that issue. And so that can be the same thing that happens with a Republican or Democratic representative down in Austin. Tell your friends and family. Post on social media. Make sure word gets out. Bring the issue to the attention of more people and ask them to act. Last legislative session, I did I don't know what it was exactly, but a bunch of texts went out maybe or something, and all over Dallas and North Texas, these signs started appearing that Environment Texas put up. Some of those were in my neighborhood. I asked people what the response had been, and what the response was is the first person that had that sign, there were I think 4 or 5 in our tiny neighborhood, talked to their neighbors who asked them about the sign. So when you're talking to people, then you get more people involved. Remember that while there's a partisan, there definitely is a partisan divide down there in Austin. That's probably true everywhere. There's a lot more that unites us than divides us, right? People are fighting right now about school vouchers. I'm on the side of the public schools in this one. But both sides of that issue believe that their side is going to lead to good education for children, okay? So approach these folks like if you can make your point to them, they'll listen. Some of them will listen. Some may not listen, obviously. You know, everybody wants clean drinking water from their faucet, right? They may not believe in climate change or whatever their deal is, but everybody wants that. Everybody wants green spaces and parks. Everybody wants businesses and residents' lights to turn on, so remind them of the importance of renewable energy on that. Everyone wants a better future for their children and grandchildren. We can agree on many issues, even though we may disagree about how to solve them. But together we must try to make our voices heard. I'll do anything that I can to help, and I would stay for the meeting. But also, another thing is I am the father, I look too old for this, but you know, God has different plans than you do sometimes. So my wife and I have twins. They're not even a year old. Since I've been at work for 15 hours, she's had 15 joyous, nonstop hours without any help of 2 kids screaming and pooping themselves. And so she asked me to hurry home. So I'm going to do that now. And thank y'all so much. God bless y'all. Any questions before I go? Yes, sir.
Do you support still funding DART?
Do I support still funding DART? Well, so that's a city issue. I think there are things, so I also chair the Regional Transportation Commission that is looking at that. And so things that I see, and this is just my personal opinion because I'm not in charge of DART, but things that I see, there's some opportunity for transit-oriented development with DART that could really help get more support behind DART. There's some opportunities for logistical improvements in routes. Y'all may remember, some of you that went through COVID, the terrible first few days of the vaccine when we had long snarling lines. Well, Toyota Process Improvement, I brought them in, they were workforce for free, and they fixed that so that the lines got much faster. We've got to kind of look at that with some of our routes at DART to make them more reliable and faster. I do think the people on the board of DART and the leader of DART and people there are working really hard to provide important transportation, not just options, but the only transportation for some people, and that's very important for the people that work in the city. So I hope that answers your question. Anybody else? Thank y'all so much. God bless y'all.
Thank you. All right, let's get a photo. So our first little piece of action that we can take is we have some signs here that the judge was just talking about. And yeah, so whoever wants to come on up here, we can all kind of get in a group photo together that we can then post on social media, showing the support coming from Dallas County for renewable energy at the Texas State Capitol.
And Dallas County is 100% green energy in all of our buildings, not just credits, but actually 100% green.
You can't get behind us. Sarah, could you also please take a mic?
All right. Whenever you get the picture taken, just shout like, "Go solar!" Go solar! All right, and one more. Go solar! Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Ian, yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right, thank you so much, everybody. So it is my pleasure to introduce Sarah Eazzetta, who is our organizer on this issue with Environment Texas as well.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, so my name is Sarah Eazzetta, and I am currently the organizer with Environment Texas, working on this Save Texas Renewables campaign. So I just wanted to thank you guys so much for coming. It means so much to us, and we're super excited to have everybody in one room. So before I dive in, I just wanted to make sure that everybody got signed in. Isaac has the clipboard, so if anybody missed that, then you can just raise your hand and he can hand it over to you. Perfect. Cool. Well, I am going to start by telling you guys a little bit more about Environment Texas. So we are a local nonprofit, and we're working for clean air, clean water, clean energy, wildlife, open spaces, and a livable climate. And we have members across the state that put the grassroots support behind our research and advocacy. And then in terms of some of our previous wins, in 2010, Environment Texas, along with some other organizations, filed a lawsuit against Exxon for 16,000 violations of the Clean Air Act. And just this past November, it resulted in a $14.25 million civil penalty after years and years of appeals, so that was really exciting. And then in 2023, we also secured $1 billion for the Centennial Parks Conservation Fund, which provides funding to expand Texas state parks. And then also in 2023, we successfully defended renewable energy from numerous attacks during the Texas legislative session. Awesome. And then I just wanted to take a minute to kind of acknowledge the current situation that we're in. A lot of the landscape around renewable energy has shifted in the last couple weeks alone, and it will probably continue to be quite uncertain going forward. And it's definitely a challenging time overall for renewable energy, especially given the executive orders which have targeted wind and solar, and particularly offshore wind, which is something that Texas was considering. But the good news is that Texas is primarily a private property rights state, and generally speaking, executive orders cannot dictate how private property is used and can only dictate federal government land and funding. And then the even better news is that Texas has a long history of coming together to support renewable energy. In fact, George W. Bush was actually the first governor to adopt a renewable energy mandate in the US. And then additionally, the economics of clean energy just makes sense. They lower costs for consumers, so that is definitely a plus. And then today we're going to focus on what we need to do to ensure we stop anti-renewable policy in Texas, and then also to build broad public support for good clean energy policy going forward. Cool, so as kind of a brief overview, the Save Texas Renewables campaign is to protect and advance renewable energy in Texas, which means defending against anti-renewable policies, and also fighting for energy policies that are under threat, and then advocating for the expansion of wind and solar, as well as mobilizing communities and leaders to champion renewable energy solutions. So now we're going to talk a little bit about why we do this work. It's important for many reasons, one of the big ones being climate change. At this point, I think we're all pretty aware that climate change is here, and it is going to keep getting worse if we don't do something about it. The most recent example being the devastating wildfires in California, and the fact that 2024 was the hottest year on record. There was a study at UT Arlington that found between 2041 and 2050, we can expect the Dallas-Fort Worth area to experience high temperatures in excess of 120 degrees on an annual basis. And we also know that climate change leads to droughts, more extreme weather events such as hurricanes, as well as rising sea levels and so much more. And climate change also leads to extreme biodiversity and species loss. And unfortunately, polluting industries and the burning of fossil fuels also contribute to bad air quality, which altogether will affect our infrastructure, agriculture, as well as human health. And because of these devastating impacts, we really need Texas to be a leader in renewable energy. But unfortunately, our state legislators are pushing anti-renewable energy policies that would make it more difficult to build the wind and solar projects that we so desperately need right now. Which brings me to some of the specific legislation. So last legislative session in 2023, Senate Bill 624 was introduced by Senator Kolkhorst, and if passed, it would have made it nearly impossible to get permitting for any renewable energy in Texas. And this session, SB 819 has been introduced, and it's very similar. It's essentially just a more extreme version of last session's SB 624, and if passed, could stall renewable energy development across the state. So some of the key provisions of SB 819, I have a couple copies printed out on the back table that have like a lot more detail if anybody's interested in looking through those. But one of them is discriminatory permitting requirements, which unfairly target wind and solar, as well as discriminatory fees and reviews, which impose new cleanup fees and environmental impact reviews that are only on renewables. And then there's also setback requirements. So one of these is that it would require wind turbines to have a setback of 3,000 feet, which is over half a mile, while oil and gas only have to have a setback of 467 feet, despite being linked to over 1,300 emissions-related deaths in Texas in 2016. And then one other one is the elimination of tax incentives, which will make wind and solar projects much more expensive and less competitive. And then there are also some broader legislative attacks, including some proposed restrictions on battery energy storage systems, requirements for 50% of ERCOT's energy to come from dispatchable power sources, as well as bans on offshore wind interconnections, and increased taxes on solar generators.
Hey Sarah, can I ask you a question there real quick?
Yes.
Back on that senator,
Yes.
do we know why she is so aggressive and repetitive and sticking with this? What's going on other than who writes checks for her campaign? I'm just curious, because I don't know anything about her.
Yeah, so to answer that question, the senator does have some backers that are specifically very interested in not having solar projects go forward. We are aware of at least one donor, to Senator Kolkhorst, that is very invested in making sure that renewable energy development near his properties do not move forward, and those are both in West Texas as well as in the Gulf Coast region.
She's Gulf Coast, right?
Yeah.
Corpus or?
Not quite sure about that
Okay.
one. So this is a continuation of what was going on last session. I think that also what has magnified this is a lot of the misinformation and disinformation that came after Winter Storm Uri. So if you will recall, Winter Storm Uri is whenever we had that huge blackout where it was just multiple days without power here across Texas. Instead of looking at the real solutions to these problems, which were things like not requiring these energy producers to winterize their facilities, especially natural gas facilities that froze, that being one of the leading causes. Instead of that, because that is politically inconvenient, instead it was blamed on everything else, mostly solar and wind, saying things like, oh, it was the solar was covered in snow, which it is not. They are actually heated. So yes, attributing it to renewables instead has been a politically expedient scapegoat that we are now having to fight on this issue.
Thank you.
Why are they proposing restrictions on battery storage systems if they want dispatchable energy?
Yeah, so that's another good question, because battery storage is dispatchable. So this word dispatchable energy is familiar to anybody who has been listening to the legislature over the past 2 to 3 years. It is a new hot buzzword, which basically means power that you can turn on and off, that is not reliant on anything else. That has been defined mostly as fossil fuel generation to meet those previous definitions. It has not been defined according to anything that is used in the electrical utility industry at all. So instead, they've been specifically excluding batteries whenever it is convenient. And there have been concerns, they've created concerns especially around the safety of batteries, excluding the fact that whenever you look at safety of a battery facility that is sitting there emitting nothing, versus a fossil fuel emissions generating energy facility that is in a community, it is night and day whenever it comes to the safety of these facilities. So yeah. Oh yeah.
Is your lobbying approach similar to how Uber is lobbying all wastemen?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not as familiar with what's going on the dartboard in that respect.
I had a question with the fourth bullet on top, elimination of tax incentives.
Yeah, that's correct.
Can you shed some light, because I might be able to add some color on some of the fossil fuel applications. They used to get credit for the pollution control equipment.
Yeah, so that is, I'm not as versed in the tax incentive aspect of things, but yes, there are tax incentives for all of the energy industry basically, because we do want to keep the lights on here in Texas. So we incentivize natural gas production pretty heavily, especially after the last session. The legislature put billions and billions of dollars into a fund that is primarily for creating new natural gas power, despite that really not being something that the market is looking for, especially. Meanwhile, with solar, it is not only not giving those incentives to solar and wind energy, but it is also then taking away all of the existing tax incentives that some of which came in under Governor Perry and some of which came in, I believe, under Governor Bush, then just eliminating those as well. So not only not getting the same treatment as other parts of the energy industry, but then taking away all of their incentives as well. Take it away.
Awesome, thank you. Awesome. So now we're going to talk about some of the common concerns about renewables, which we've kind of touched on a little bit. But one of the major concerns is that utility scale wind and solar projects require a lot of land. and many worry about the impacts they'll have on wildlife and other pristine habitats. And unfortunately, rather than finding, as Ian kind of mentioned, rather than finding a balanced solution that would allow for wind and solar energy to grow while also mitigating the worst impacts, SB 819 creates discriminatory and capricious permitting and other requirements which could slam the brakes entirely on renewable energy. And then additionally, one of the biggest reasons we've lost open space is due to housing sprawl, but we're not doing anything about that. So, and then another part of this is that we actually do have some solutions for this problem. One is, as the picture is showing, agrivoltaics is dual use solar, so you can actually have farming and solar generation on the same land. Another solution is rooftop solar, which reduces the need for large-scale land use. And the goal is to protect our rare and precious natural spaces like native blackland prairies through public land acquisitions, deed restrictions, and other protections. And then another concern is bird collisions and wind turbines. And we do have some solutions for this as well, including radar systems that pause turbines when birds are detected, as well as improved turbine designs. And additionally, there is data that fossil fuel plants kill 20 times more birds than wind farms. And then another concern is the reliability of renewable energy. Luckily, battery storage is quickly improving and will ensure power availability when the sun isn't shining and the wind is not blowing. And then big picture, climate change will cause far greater harm to agriculture, biodiversity, and our economy if we fail to transition to renewables. Awesome. So then to discuss the importance of renewable energy, I would like to introduce Michael Martin. He is the founder of MM Solar Advisory, as well as a leader in commercial rooftop solar solutions.
Okay, hello everybody. Wow, this is awesome. Well, I got 40 people in here. I'm psyched about this. This is great. 400 next time, because we're going to need it. Anyway, yeah, I'm Michael Martin. I'm a native Dallas boy, so I've been around here a long time, and I kind of get what these guys are doing down there. And so it's just another round of it. So we've got the truth, the facts, good hearts on our side. So let's just keep that in mind. So anyway, we'll keep this thing moving. So let me just talk a little bit about renewable energy, and I'm in the solar world, but know a fair bit about other stuff too. And I think that referencing climate, of course, keep that in your back pocket unless somebody likes to talk that way, because we can talk that way, but you go to the Capitol, you might as well leave that language outside, right? I think that's probably the advice these days. So let's talk about things that should matter to legislators and historically have, which is jobs, money, companies that can make money, which is good for the Texas economy, because remember, we're business friendly in Texas and we're good for business, which is a lot very true, unless they don't like your business, like mine or somebody else in this business. Payback. Here's the other thing that, and the reason it's good business is because this solar stuff does pay for itself, and the batteries pay for themselves, and when these things pay for themselves, because I forgot these guys, the investors, the good news where I wake up every day and still have a lot of confidence is because the private sector is ignoring all these yahoos like Cole, of course. She has no credibility with them. So these guys have been making a lot of money, investors, for years and decades now on wind and solar, which is where most of the private capital is going for new power plants in America. So that's really important to know. This is not new. The last several years now, I think, the most of the new electricity power plants, big scale stuff, utility stuff in America is solar and wind. So we're killing the incumbent stuff. So, and again, we're business friendly. We should in Texas go with what the markets want, and the markets want the clean stuff. So anyway, and then the other bit, here about this great point Sarah just made about, doing multiple things on your land with solar or wind or whatever. And, this is, freedom in Texas. Don't mess with my land. I don't think, I think that'll win the day. Anyway, so, and the other part of this is that, and we've already had this reference, is you know, the good thing, people like to talk about solar and wind when, you know, things are stressful or disastrous, but they're really handy when things are going badly, because it's often really beautiful after a bad storm and a lot of sun's out, so solar's rocking it, and the wind and blah, 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 like after Uri. And so these things work every day and are working to pay for themselves and add value to our grid every single day. And what's really cool, as I already referenced, is it's going to keep power costs down. All these other things have fuel costs and maintenance costs and regulatory costs. They're going to keep going this way and are going at a steeper angle. That's another thing that we've got to communicate to everybody, is that the only way to keep power costs down in Texas is going with renewables, because it's all upfront costs, and then the stuff is super low maintenance and does not have fuel costs, for instance, like all these other things do. You got to dig up coal and ship it here. You got to transport methane and flare it and leak it all over the place and try and get as much you can to a power plant. So on and on. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is that a big thing here is distributed energy resources like rooftop solar. Here's an area where we can, I think, insulate ourselves from Senator Kohlhorst and others. What you want to do on the roof of your building, whether it's a home or a business, is your business, and they can't do anything about that, and you're behind the meter. So there's so much talk about how great Texas is, and I was in the utility solar business, and yes, we're kicking ass, but per capita, per Environment Texas last year, y'all have read, here's a quiz. Where are we per capita solar in the U.S.? We're number one in gross amount of solar. Who knows our position per capita? Glenn?
20.
Boom, 20. That is not Texas winning. And those yahoos in Austin want to win. Well, if they want to make it win, then we need to get distributed stuff going. Yes?
Who's number one? Just curious.
Per capita? Oh, Massachusetts or
Hawaii number one.
Hawaii, okay.
California's
Yeah.
number two.
Okay.
Massachusetts is
Yes.
number three.
Yes.
Number four is
Right.
Arizona. Number 5 is Rhode Island.
Yeah. So the reason this matters, see, Texas is always biggest in everything because we're biggest state with the 7th largest economy on the planet. So we can't let that fool us. Hey, we're supporting, look how great we already are. Yes, we've done great, but where we have not done well is distributed solar. I believe that's really key to us to fight a lot of this. Like, look at, this is a Walmart picture I stuck in here. Walmart can do this all day long, and they are doing it all day long, and they're pretty smart. They've got millions of shareholders that are criticizing them every day. This is not where Walmart is paying any price at all. So I think if we think part of our strategy might also be how we go more for distributed energy and promote that would be great. And then obviously our environmental value, and I always like to talk in terms of waste and pollution. I try and stay away from terms that get people worked up, but here's my favorite question is, okay, if you're a fan of waste and pollution, please put your hand up. 0. That's always how many hands go up. That's all we're talking about here. Because the waste and pollution is screwing up our water, and holy cow, there's a big secret out in Permian Basin with respect to the availability of water and contamination of water that I am pretty sure that stuff is staying under the radar, and it's becoming a real serious problem. And then, the health of kids, like, Clay talked about. We just accept, oh, my kid's got to go get an inhaler and go to the pulmonologist. No, let's solve the problem and stop that, right? We can. It's, allergies are one thing, but pollution's another. So the value proposition in terms of clean air and eliminating that version of waste and pollution is massive. And the water stress, that's, coming and coming and coming. None of this stuff, wind, solar, batteries, we don't need any water, hardly at all, to clean stuff. I mean, it's a non-factor. These are the big things in Texas. So these are the super simple, basic facts we just got to beat into everybody in Austin, everybody would come in contact with, because these are the real facts. And then we can say, now, why would you not support this? And let's hear what they say. Well, because somebody wrote me a check would be the honest answer, perhaps. And, I'm not that political, so I might have to speak that way with them down there, but I'll try and be a good boy when I go to Austin. Just a couple other quick facts. And are we distributing these after the meeting so people can have this? Again, facts. Not from Michael Martin or anybody in this room, but these places, these organizations that track this stuff and know what they're doing have real, legit research. 17% of our electricity basically last year, so pushing 20% now, is wind and solar. Holy cow, in the whole country, that's incredible. What's this? Oh, at a world level, a third of the world, clean energy sources. And then, this is what I mentioned earlier, all the new generation of power in America, big scale stuff, not distributed, rooftop. Look at that, 80% is solar. I mean, come on, man. These people you wonder why they're completely ignoring, and I think we just got to put this on the table. Why are you ignoring all these really awesome facts? And look at this. This year, renewables, this is worldwide, going to take over coal worldwide, more share of the power produced, and surpassing nuclear next year. And here's the deal, as already been pointed out. We already rely on renewables, period. It's a fact. And so let's remind people of that. And we can make lots of money. We can get lots of jobs. We can have everybody more healthy. Pretty good stuff. And by the way, in the meantime, if the private sector wants to keep funding methane gas plants, let them do it. I don't think they're going to do it very much. So anyway, one other quick thing. Here's a snapshot from everybody's favorite Doug Lewin, who produces so much good stuff. This is just on one of those real cold days we had a couple weeks ago. Look at this, solar and wind, 35% at that time of day. 35% of our power, basically the same as methane. So it's pretty relevant what we are all doing with clean energy. It really matters to Texas in a big way. So anyway, these are all really good, real facts, and hopefully those will help us be successful with playing defense, and maybe we can play some offense with some distributed energy policies, because it'll be great for business, and they probably can't tell us not to do that anyway. So anyway, thank you very much for letting me share a little bit tonight. I don't know who's next. I'll let you take it over. I'm done, right? Yes, you're done.
Thank you so much. Awesome. Cool. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about our campaign plan and how we're going to actually make things happen. So now we know renewables are essential, and we need to protect them. So the goal is to stop SB 819 and to protect renewable energy. We're going to organize in 3 key areas. The first one is grassroots mobilization. So this will focus on collecting petitions and driving calls to state legislators. The next category is media and public awareness. So for this, we'll focus on publishing letters to the editor, organizing press conferences, and generating news coverage. And then we're also going to focus to build a strong coalition. We'll work to secure endorsements from organizations, host community briefings, and organize events like a solar farm tour or a renewables myth-busting panel. And then we don't have a ton of time, but I do want to break out into groups at the end and kind of talk through each thing. But before we do that, I want to have Joy Sullivan from Citizens Climate Lobby, who will speak just a little bit about how grassroots advocacy creates real change.
Hi, and I'm Joy Sullivan. I am one of the group leaders for the Citizens Climate Lobby DFW chapter. Hi, Glenn, another one of our steering committee members. I'm also the regional community ambassador for CCL for essentially Texas, Louisiana, a few other states, but trying to keep it quick. We've had a lot of success as far as the Educating Texans component. In the last 2 years, we've had a lot of real good success with our En-ROADS presentation and getting essentially a climate solution simulator in front of college students, high school students. We're trying to do more different type of presentations for like the Dallas Audubon Society, as well as TRACS, which is the Texas Regional Alliance of Campus Sustainability. Got that one down. And so it really is important to not only connect with people and talk about these things, but grassroots campaigns need people, because honestly, we remind our elected officials of their duty, of their role as elected officials, that they serve their constituents. We're consumers or customers in kind of a way, and so they answer to us, and we remind them of that by going and lobbying in Austin and having those conversations and reminding them why we care about these different initiatives, specifically climate change. And so we can talk a little bit more about that. I can give my full spiel in the grassroots group. So,
Thank you. So now we're going to take some action. We're going to split into these 3 groups. So the grassroots team will be with Joy, and you guys are going to think through how we can best gather petitions, and then mainly focus on some of the bigger events and plan out whether we want to do a solar farm tour or if anybody has any other good ideas. So if you guys want to go right over in that corner, anybody who's interested in that can do that one. And then we'll do a media team led with Ian, and you guys could go right here in the front. And you guys will focus on strategizing news coverage through press conferences, writing letters to the editor, and brainstorming good visuals for those events. And then our last one will be the coalitions team led by Michael, and you guys can go all the way in the back. So that team will discuss building a coalition, brainstorming organizations that would be good to get in contact with to extend our reach. And then if you're a member of another community group or environmental or conservation organization, that would be a good group to join. We are going to end the breakout groups in
10 minutes.
Yeah, we'll do 10 minutes. So then we can quickly just wrap up after that. So if everybody could go to wherever they want, we'll do grassroots, media, and coalitions.